Dangerous wildlife. Everything wants to kill you, or at least ruin your day. The stereotype is true. Australia's wildlife is not here to make friends. In fact, it often feels like the entire animal kingdom has a personal vendetta against you. Let's start with the snakes. Australia is home to 21 of the world's 25 most venomous snakes. They love to hide in your backyard, your shoes, or even your toilet bowl. Nothing says, "Good morning," like finding a brown snake coiled up next to your toothbrush. Then there are the spiders, redbacks, funnel webs, huntsmen the size of your face. These 8-legged nightmares love to surprise you in the shower or behind the curtains. And while most bites aren't fatal, the psychological trauma is very real. If you're lucky, you'll only have to deal with the harmless ones that just want to watch you scream. But wait, there's more. Head to the beach, and you'll be greeted by sharks, jellyfish, and the occasional saltwater crocodile. The box jellyfish is so venomous that a single sting can send you to the hospital, or worse. And let's not forget the magpies. Every spring, these feathered demons turn into dive-bombing maniacs, attacking innocent pedestrians and cyclists with the kind of aggression usually reserved for reality TV contestants. Even the cute animals aren't safe. Kangaroos can kick, koalas have claws, and cassowaries are basically dinosaurs with an attitude problem. The only thing more terrifying than the wildlife is the way Australians treat it like it's no big deal. "Oh, that's just a redback, mate. You'll be all right." Will I, though? Will I really? So if you've ever wanted to live in a real-life version of Jumanji, Australia is ready and waiting. Just remember to check your shoes, your bed, and your sanity at the door. The immigration and refugee mess, bureaucracy, backlash, and borderline absurdity. Immigration and refugees, a topic so controversial in Australia that even the kangaroos have an opinion. If you thought moving to Australia would be all sunshine, koalas, and no worries, mate, you clearly haven't tried navigating the country's immigration system or watched the nightly news. Australia's approach to immigration and refugees is a wild roller coaster of bureaucracy, political grandstanding, and good old-fashioned public confusion. Strap in, because this ride has more twists and turns than a Great Barrier Reef snorkeling tour. Let's start with the government's legendary border policies. For decades, Australia has had some of the toughest stances on illegal immigration in the developed world. Remember Operation Sovereign Borders? That's the one where the Navy literally turns boats around and sends asylum seekers packing. Sometimes to remote Pacific islands you'd need a map to find. Nauru and Manus Island have become infamous as offshore detention centers. Think of them as Australia's least popular holiday destinations, where the only thing on the itinerary is indefinite waiting. And, if you're lucky, a game of bingo with the guards. International human rights groups have slammed these policies as cruel and inhumane, but the government insists it's all about saving lives at sea. Sure, if by saving you mean locking up in limbo for years. In 2025, the government is doubling down on deportations. Over 880,000 people are now at risk of being booted out of the country, sometimes for minor infractions or just because their paperwork wasn't quite perfect. The message is clear. Australia is open for business, but only if you can jump through more hoops than a circus poodle and fill out enough forms to deforest Tasmania. Even if you're a skilled migrant, the process is so convoluted, you'll start to wonder if you're applying for citizenship or auditioning for a reality TV show called Survivor, Department of Home Affairs. And if you're an asylum seeker, good luck. The process is slow, opaque, and often traumatic. You might spend years in detention, waiting for your claim to be processed, only to be told you're not eligible and sent back to where you came from. The mental health toll is enormous, and stories of despair, self-harm, and hopelessness are all too common. Even if you're eventually accepted, settling into life in Australia isn't exactly a walk in the park. There's a constant undercurrent of suspicion and resentment, fueled by politicians and media outlets who love to blame migrants for everything from traffic jams to rising rents. Speaking of which, let's talk about the public backlash. Every time there's a spike in housing prices or a strain on public services, you can bet someone will point the finger at too many immigrants. The debate gets heated, with one side demanding tighter controls and the other side begging for compassion. Meanwhile, actual migrants and refugees are just trying to get on with their lives, raise their kids, and maybe, just maybe, afford a place to live that isn't a shoebox with a view of the bins. Extreme weather, sunburn, flood, or fire. Pick your poison. Australia's weather is like a box of chocolates. If every chocolate was filled with something that could kill you or ruin your day. The sun doesn't just shine here, it incinerates. The UV index is so high that you can get sunburned just by thinking about going outside. Sunscreen is less a suggestion and more a survival tool. Forget to slip, slop, slap, and you'll be spending the next week peeling like a banana. But it's not just the sun. Oh no. Bushfires are now an annual event, with entire communities on edge for months at a time. The smell of smoke in the air is so common, it might as well be a national fragrance. And if you're not being threatened by fire, you're probably dealing with floods. Torrential rain can turn streets into rivers overnight, and if you own a car, you'll quickly learn the difference between water-resistant and submarine. Let's not forget the hailstorms. Golf ball-sized hail? That's just a Tuesday in some parts of the country. And then there's the wind. So strong, it'll blow your washing off the line and your hat into the next suburb. And did I mention the cold? Yes, Australia gets cold too, especially in the southern states. But don't expect your house to keep you warm. Insulation is apparently an optional extra, so you'll be shivering in your own home, wrapped in every piece of clothing you own. So whether you're dodging bushfires, building an ark, or just trying not to melt, Australia's weather will keep you on your toes and probably make you question your life choices every time you step outside. The cost of living will make you cry, and not just from chopping onions. If you've ever wondered what it feels like to have your wallet mugged every time you leave the house, welcome. Australia in 2025 is basically a real-life Monopoly game, except you'd never get to pass go and you definitely don't collect $200. Rent, astronomical. Buying a house? Only if you've got a secret stash of gold bars buried in the backyard. In Sydney, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is so high you'd expect it to come with a live-in butler and a daily pep talk from Chris Hemsworth. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Groceries are another adventure. Avocados are now a luxury item, and you'll start to think twice before adding cheese to your sandwich. A night out? Hope you enjoy paying $30 for a burger, and don't even ask about the price of a pint. Petrol prices? Through the roof. Every trip to the servo feels like you're buying shares in the oil company. Electricity bills are so high you'll be rationing your Netflix binges and showering in the dark just to save a few bucks. And let's not forget about parking fees, because nothing says welcome to the city like paying $10 just to leave your car for 15 minutes. Even the so-called middle class is feeling the pinch. It used to be that if you worked hard, you could afford a house, a car, and maybe a holiday once a year. Now the middle class is basically just people who can afford to eat out once a month and don't have to sell a kidney to pay the rent. The system feels rigged, and the only thing growing faster than the cost of living is the collective sense of despair. So if you're dreaming of financial freedom, Australia is here to teach you the true meaning of character building through relentless, soul-crushing fiscal pain. Social issues, racism, sexism, and more. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, social issues. Australia likes to think of itself as a laid-back, friendly place, but scratch the surface, and you'll find a country grappling with racism, sexism, and homophobia. These problems aren't unique to Australia, but they're definitely present, and sometimes shockingly out in the open. The discourse around racism is decades behind places like the US or UK, and Aussies will often flat out deny it exists at all. Getting permanent residency is insanely competitive and expensive, and the political climate can feel hostile to anyone who doesn't fit the mainstream mold. If you're from a minority background, be prepared for some awkward moments and outright discrimination. And don't even get me started on the state of politics, corruption, incompetence, and a general sense of moving backwards rather than forwards. It's enough to make anyone want to cry into their overpriced beer. Click the like button, subscribe, and stay awesome.